Bill Gibney.
Partially present. Partially here.
Lynn Davison. David Nigro.
Present.
Shelley Herbold.
Here, present.
Mark Sims.
Here.
Mike Gordon.
I'm here.
Mike Manley.
Present.
Suke Kneipel, present. And Dean Howard.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's 5 people, correct? So there's a quorum.
Yes. Yes, there is.
I can't hear you.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go to item 1.02, information item, Tucson campus update presentation by the Assistant Superintendent Rex.
Good afternoon, President Sims and Board. I'm going to direct your attention to our ASDB Tucson campus principal, Ms. Kelly Creasy, and she will do a quick intro before the video.
Good afternoon, Board President Sims, members of the Board, Superintendent Reichman, and Dr. Rex. I'm honored to share with you this afternoon a video of Tucson campus staff, students, and parents. In the video, you will hear about the unique services that we provide on this campus that cannot be found anywhere else in the state. In the audience this afternoon are staff members from this campus. Their dedication and hard work each day makes this a safe and enriching learning environment for students who are deaf, hard of hearing, blind, visually impaired, and deaf-blind. They truly are the ones that make a difference. Please enjoy the video.
Hi, my name is Angela Matson, and I'm a teacher in the middle school, and I'm interviewing.
Hi, my name is Liliana Jimenez, and I'm currently a 7th grader in the middle school. Hi there, my name is Jonas Camp, and I work here at the Arizona State School for the Deaf and Blind in Tucson campus at the Saguaro dorm, and I work as a teaching parent. So I am here with one of our boys in the dorm. Can you give us your name? My name is Julian Cole. And what grade are you in? I'm in 6th grade.
My name is Lisa Sereno. I'm a teacher of the visually impaired. I'm currently teaching in middle school.
My name is Jasmine Martinez, and I am 12 years old.
My name is Marianne Hedrick, and I work in Pima Dorm as a master teaching parent. And I work with Talia Tall, and I help teach her laundry skills, independent living skills, cooking, and many other things. So we go on different activities.
My name is Talia Tall. I am 10 years old, and I am in 4th grade.
I'm Carrie Hodgkinson, and I'm currently the teacher for the Work Studies program, Java Express, in middle school, as well as running the Work Studies program in high school, which your son will hopefully be going to.
Yes.
And currently I am his teacher.
Yes, I am Letitia Tenorio Madrid. I am Junior Tenorio's mom. And we've seen each other around campus for the last 8 years that he's came here. But I actually just officially met her this year when she became his teacher at Java.
So you're a student here at the Tucson campus, right? What's the best thing about being a student here?
I like ASDB because I feel like it's the best place for me. I feel like I'm a role model for elementary students. Now that I'm in middle school, I feel like I'm a leader.
Technology.
What kind of things do you use in technology?
I use the Braille Note Touch, the computer, and hard drives. Lots and lots of hard drives.
So what's the best thing about living in the dorms? I think it's cool because I get to socialize with other deaf students, and I can communicate in sign language, and there's both blind, and there's staff there that's pretty cool. So you hang out with staff and you learn about blind people and other students at the dorm. That's pretty cool.
So that must have been a big change for you to move your family here. Why did you decide to move it to this specific campus and not a different school?
Well, I decided here first because I had such a bad experience in New Mexico at the public schools there. As you know, JT is two-fed. So I put him in school really early there. They did not know any sign. That was, back then, was not mandatory for any of the special needs classes to know any kind of sign language, and then also they didn't have any one-on-ones or anything like that. So I actually had to attend school with him every day to interpret for him and to actually feed him, because the nurses would not agree to even help do that because of liability reasons. So at that point, I knew that once he started kindergarten, I wanted him to come to a really good school that, like I said, assisted all his needs as far as me not having to come to school with him every day. I wanted him to be independent, so I wanted him to be able to get that experience of coming to school by himself.
Okay. I think being a student here at a school for the deaf supports me as an individual because I'm able to understand things easily. Whereas at a public school, I'd have to get my education through an interpreter. And working directly with a teacher that signs, I'm able to access my education freely that way. At public schools, I think maybe sometimes there might be miscommunication or gaps in the communication, whereas here at a school for the deaf, communication is just open and I'm able to be myself.
What kind of things do you learn living in the dorm?
I learned how to do my own laundry and cook for myself and be independent.
And I know you mentioned an intervener, which is a certification program that we have here for individuals. What is unique about that for JT?
It's amazing. The people that are interveners are actually trained specifically to be one-on-ones for children who have special needs like my son, so who don't have the vision or the hearing that other student would have to process information to help them learn.
So after you graduate, what do you think you want to do?
Well, when I graduate from ASDB, I want to go to college. I don't want to go directly to work. I want to go to college and hopefully finish a 4-year program. And I actually want to major as a doctor or working with people in the operation room, maybe as a veterinarian even.
I would like to be the technology teacher at ASDB.
That's great. You're going to have to put our assistive technology teacher out of a job, right?
We have so many activities and events happening on campus. You know, we have festivals and ceremonies we celebrate, and we have character counts assembly where we learn throughout the year how to respect each other and responsibility and trustworthiness and the different pillars of character. I really love this school.
It's a very amazing feeling as a parent to know that they could come to one place and they could have everything at once and not have to worry about how to get a ride to all the therapies or how to fit everything in one day, because the day is long enough with them just at school. The students couldn't handle, I know my son couldn't and I couldn't handle running across Tucson everywhere to be able to take them to all the services that they would need, and to have it all in one place and get it all done, at school, and know that you could go home and then you could have your child and spend family time and do what you need to do is just amazing. So,
well, thank you for sharing them with us.
Oh, thank you guys.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions?
Mark, this is Bill. I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Bill, please.
As most of you know, I was at ASDB for about 50 years ago, well, maybe 60 years ago. And for one semester, I was a day student. My family lived in Tucson. But for most of my time down there, I lived in a dorm. And I enjoyed living in the dorm so much more than being a day student. As a day student, I mean, maybe my parents were glad to have me. Well, maybe not. But I much preferred being around the other children, and socializing with them, playing games with them, doing sports with them, eating with them, especially being integrated with other 8-, 9-year-old girls. I wouldn't have had that opportunity at home. So I'm glad these kids have that opportunity.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Sorry.
I think I'm missing something. Okay, item 1.03, call to the public for agendized items. Any comments submitted?
No comments, cards submitted.
Okay, thank you. Information and discussion items, executive reports, 1.04. First, report business operations.
Board President Sims, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, Dr. Rex. You have my report. I guess any questions, first of all, on the report? Does anybody, if you've looked at it, do you have any questions? Basically, what I've done this month is just compare for you our expenditures from 18 to 17 and the difference between the first 4 months of the year through the end of October. You might see an anomaly there. You'll notice that our biggest cost is personal service and employee related, and then I kind of lump the OOE all together. You see that costs have dropped with the exception of the ERE, which went up, and that's because of health insurance. I actually looked at that, tried to identify the object code that related to health insurance, the medical insurance that we pay. The other thing that I have on the report is a list of the grants that we've been awarded this year. You can see there's some significant changes, especially in the Idea Basic, because of the a shift in the way that the dollars were allocated. It gets rather complicated. Board member Manley may know, but more so. But it really goes back to the base year that the funding's derived from, and then how the funding's calculated going forward. Both with Title I and Title II and special ed, they use poverty numbers, and then they have to take into consideration significantly expanding charter schools, closed schools, other things of that nature. So on the case of Title I, our allocation went up significantly. In the case of special ed, it dropped significantly. So those are some things you might want to be aware of. And then finally, I'd like to point out in the board report that we were, like all boards and commissions, we were reviewed. It was a review. It wasn't actually an audit. It was a review of our board reimbursements and what have you. And we came out pretty well. Like, there was a $2 clerical error, and that's all that it was. And we basically corrected it. And I basically let them know that we would take steps to prevent errors in the future with training to the board. And here's the training. Use the form. And if you have a problem, talk to Alicia. I'm done with the training. So, are there any questions for anybody? Okay, thank you very much.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is human resources, Anita Bates.
Good afternoon, Board President Sims, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, and Dr. Rex. In your board packet is a copy of the Human Resources Report. I'd like to take a few moments to highlight a couple of items. Since our last board meeting, we've been working on making sure that all our staff members are ready for open enrollment. We have over 500 staff, a little over 500 staff members that are eligible for benefits. And this is a positive enrollment year, which means they are required to select or decline medical coverage. We are about a little over 200, making sure, a little 200 staff members that have completed their benefits this far. The next thing I'd like to talk about is our position description questionnaires. Those are our actual job classifications or position descriptions that we maintain for every staff member in the agency. And currently we are making sure that all of our staff members have a signed copy on file. At this time, I'd like to make myself available for any questions that you may have.
Any questions for you? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is information technology, Paul Creasy.
Good afternoon, Board President Sims, members of the board, Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent Rex. In your board packet, I've provided you a copy of the IT department report. I'd like to take a moment to highlight an item of interest, and that is recently we had a power outage, and normally it's not a big deal as our data center has battery backups. But what I'd like to bring to the attention is our battery backup for our data center is about an hour, and so at 35 minutes, we have to start planning on shutting everything down because the data center gets hot since no AC is running. With that, in the past, every time we've had those incidents occur, a lot of times we'd lose configurations on the switches and different things like that. But why I wanted to bring this to your attention is because we've been proactive, we've been monitoring our systems regularly, and also put things into place to reduce some of those issues from occurring, and working with the state of Arizona as well. We've reduced the numbers of disruptions of service, critical services such as our phone systems and email and communication, as well as internet, to, at this point, our goal is to reduce it to 99% uptime. But with that, we've been able to reduce it to twice so far this year, and that the first time that it occurred, we didn't actually have to shut down all our systems. We started shutting down before power came back up. This last time, power was out for about 2 hours, and so we were able to bring the systems back up within after 3 hours, everything came back up, communication was restored, and we had no failures at all. So with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions?
This is Shelley Herbold. So one of my concerns is regarding emergency situations. In the case of a power outage, how is an emergency communicated? Is that through a lockdown system? What is your backup way of communicating if something does happen?
So with the backup, normally when those situations occur, when it comes to communication, power in the dorms for health and safety, there's procedures put in place in the dorms on how to react, working with the security department and the dorm staff and residential staff. That's one reason they have fire drills, those types of things occur. There is an agency, specifically something that is being worked on as well. It's a living document, and that's the emergency response plan, and that actually is run by the safety committee and created by the safety committee, so with that, there's a documentation to the process, and there's a process for each one of those instances. If power is needed, cell phones are provided, lights are provided, as far as flashlights, those types of things through security. And with the new plan that's being worked on, there's going to be added more efficient ways to do things as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Creepy? Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Next is Dr. Kristen Rex, instructional update.
Good afternoon, President Sims and Board. I have submitted my report, but I have a few items I would like to highlight. The Council of Schools for the Blind, Cosby, honored Mrs. Megan Mogan at their conference in Louisville, Kentucky a few weeks back. She was named the Related Services of the Year, which is a great honor. There were 40 applicants, and Megan was chosen, and she was able to attend the APH conference as well as receive her award. I also had the opportunity to attend the Arizona Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents this past Sunday. They have an annual conference that they held here in Tucson, and the Southwest Regional Assistant Director Southwest Regional Supervising Teacher, Mrs. Melissa Velasquez, was honored as a Leader of Tomorrow Award. I'd also like to thank Board Member Lynn Davison, as well as Paya Benson, our Southeast Regional Director, who traveled up to Prescott Valley to do a tour of the Quad Cities Partnership. We were given an all-day tour of the campus, Coyote Springs Elementary. We had the opportunity to have a student tour to speak to a parent of a student that is now in the partnership. We got to go see classrooms being demonstrated, how our kids are working in regular classrooms and the supports that they receive from our interpreting and our hearing impaired teachers. We had the opportunity to meet with the staff afterward and talk about how this first year's implementation is going. And a super shout out to Ms. Jay McDonald, as well as Danielle Cummings, for putting this all together for us. We really enjoyed it. And we look forward to working with, there's some other areas in Arizona that now want to know more about partnerships and how to consolidate resources. So we will be going to meet with people in the White Mountains in December to talk about a potential partnership site there. Thank you.
Great. I'm sorry, did you say you're going to meet in September?
December.
Okay, I was about to say. All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you. Next is Ryan Bouchard, Media and Communications.
Good afternoon, Board President Sims, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Rex, and guests in attendance. My name is Aaron Moya. I'm the Web and Digital Media Manager for the Media and Communications Division, and I'll be presenting on behalf of Chief Agency Relations Officer Ryan Bouchard. Submitted before you in your board packet, you will find the Media and Communications Executive Report. Now, before I open up for any questions, I would like to take a moment to highlight several things within that report. First thing I'd like to point out is that we actually had record-shattering positive ASDB impressions for a 2-month period with estimated impressions of 1.1 million. And to give you an idea of how enormous this is and how enormous these numbers are, these figures are about the same number of positive impressions that were generated for the entire 2016 and 2017 school year. And a few of those featured items from the last 2 months that I would like to point out was an amazing Arizona Republic front page story that featured the PDSD football program. And the program is excellent. It gives students confidence, leadership abilities that they can apply in the real world. So we're very happy about that. Several other things, there's a lot that's going on, but 2 other key points is the Quad City Partnership coverage, which spanned across radio, print, web, and also social media. We also had an Arizona public media special on ASDB blind students in the STEM program. With that said, this board report was submitted prior to the governor's proposal for the ECFE funding, and this has been featured in various media releases, websites, several articles written about it, and those are going to generate even more positive impressions. Now, the executive report you typically receive talks a lot about projects the Media and Communications Division does. But rather than providing you detailed outputs of our collaborative and cumulative work efforts, we wanted to showcase what we do on the media team. Now, we would love to share with you a short clip of the White Cane Day 2017 video. This video in itself had over 3,700 impressions on social media, but more importantly, it demonstrates the huge effort the media department makes as well as the collaborative efforts made through the education division. And this video is just one unique example of what we do at the Tucson campus.
So welcome to 2017 White Cane Day, and we do this every year to bring awareness to people using white canes and to show that our students are 100% independent and can travel safely in our community.
White Cane Day is spreading awareness of laws.
Yeah. I like White Cane Day because I get to be out in the community using this cane.
White Cane Day is a great opportunity for visually impaired and blind people to express who they really are.
Check out more exciting videos at asdb.az.gov/ASDB-videos.
And at this time, I would like to open up for any questions you may have.
Any questions for?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Terry Pritchard, Operations.
Good afternoon, Board President Sims, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, and Assistant Superintendent Rex. Before you have my board report. There's a couple of things I'd like to highlight first, and then I'll open it up for any questions you all may have. First, I want to just let you know that the parking lot replacement in BPAC has gone from expected to be complete to complete. We are moving along with our HVAC projects. They're all on schedule. The other one, the facility department, we've been working on a space utilization committee. We met on October 30th and shared some of the documents that I submitted to all of you. We have another meeting in a couple of weeks to go over some other options that we may have. With that, I'd like to open up for any questions you all may have.
Terry, just to highlight the spatialization, what is the ratio of utilization of space in Tucson as compared to PDSD?
Looks like it's, depending on what, it's high school, it's 30% complete, full in Tucson. PDSD has 91% capacity. Middle school is 11% full in Tucson, about 57% full in PDSD. And then the elementary is 24% versus 60%.
Mark, this bill, what do those numbers reflect?
That's the total number of square footage per child that we have and how much we're actually occupying.
So the first number was 30% in Tucson. So tell me what that means.
Let me jump in. This is Superintendent Annette Reichman. What we've done here is Albert Duff, who's the head of facilities in Tucson, did some research trying to figure out how do we decide how much space per student and per staff should we have. And through his research, he found there were specific Arizona statutory requirements on the square footage per student, which I think is 200 square feet per student, right?
It's 125 for high school. School facility board lists 100 for middle school and 100 for elementary square footage.
Okay, so you heard that, 125, 100, 100, from high school to middle school to elementary school.
And that's for the visually impaired?
No.
For all students.
All students,
across the state of Arizona. This is an Arizona statutory requirement for all students in the state. Do we need to make some adjustments for students who are deaf and students who are blind and VI? Perhaps. We're starting to have that discussion. But we decided to start with the statutory benchmark to see how we compared with the state of Arizona statutory requirements. So that was just a starting point for us. We also looked at staff, and it was really the same thing. The state of Arizona, from the governor's office, they're looking at 200 square foot per staff individual. So, and then Albert did some analysis of the Phoenix campus and the Tucson campus, and this is how he came up with these percentages that you just heard Terry report on, is that he put together the total square foot we have for the students here on the Tucson campus and the Phoenix campus, and then divided it up the square foot per student, and found that on the Tucson campus for the middle school, for example, we had 3 times the number of square foot per student than was required by the state of Arizona. So clearly that's an indication of not good use of space. So then that leads the discussion of how we can shrink a footprint on the Tucson campus and save some of our resources that we are spending on electricity and maintenance and other things. So this was just a beginning of that discussion. Now the Phoenix campus, those percentages reflect, they're pretty full. They're not 100% full, but they're using their space pretty well. Maybe need some tweaks here and there. But clearly the Tucson campus, we can be doing better. And we're not just doing the schools. We're going to be looking at our office space around the state. We do spend some money on leasing offices at different places to rethink how we use space. And a lot of our staff are not in offices. They're out. They're doing their thing. They're working. They're in the local schools. They're traveling. They're providing services. So does every one of our staff members need to have individual offices? Maybe not. Maybe we could be reducing some of those expenditures and transferring to other more direct service delivery. So what Terry is just reporting on and what you see in your file here is just the beginning of this conversation that we're having. And obviously we're starting with the Tucson campus because as we look at the numbers, we're using too much space for the number of students and the number of staff that we have here. So I encourage you to take some time to look at those materials. Albert did a really nice job of putting it together. We can also forward to you a PowerPoint presentation that he put together that too provides some guidance and the thought processes that went into this analysis. Again, we're just starting. We will be talking about this ongoing as we move it, as we start figuring out how we can save money. Does that help, Annie?
And that helped a lot. Let me make sure that I do understand, though. So in Tucson, the 30% figure represents that we only use 30% of the available space? 70% goes unused?
Albert, can you come up and clarify that? You explained that so well
Yes,
to
Bill.
us.
Superintendent Reichman, can I maybe clarify a bit, just from my experience as a principal? This is Mike.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
ASDB is in a unique situation in that if we're at 100% anywhere, we're in big trouble. Just kind of set that as a precedent. We're using every inch. I would assume that we're using every inch of the Tucson space. Arizona statute gives a very conservative square footage per gen ed pupil rate for the now unfunded capital rate for how the state used to pay for new schools. So I think the superintendent is on the right path on looking for efficiencies in Tucson, but the 30% will, just by the definition of the terms that we're using, while the space is being fully used, the idea that we could almost triple the number of students in Tucson is a bit of a fallacy. I know as a principal, I would at least double or triple my square footage for students with special needs, because you have to, as a practical measure. So the percentages that it looked like we were using were based on the old funding formula for funding new schools. But when we're looking at efficiencies for office space and use for space when it comes to instructional space, this is a useful tool to see how we might be more efficient. But just looking at those numbers, they look really very inefficient, but that might not be the entire story for use of this educational space. Am I kind of on the right path there?
Absolutely, yes.
So, Mike, because of the extra square footage needs for the special needs student, this might be not entirely accurate, or maybe a little bit of an exaggeration.
I would think so.
Okay. Thank you.
Particularly for students with visual impairment. When you're looking at O&M needs and some of the needs of the kids that we serve, I would assume. I could be off base, but that's not considered in the formula that the state generates at all.
I want to give Albert the opportunity
Sure.
to speak. Go ahead.
So, Mike, you're absolutely right regarding the state minimum requirements. Just as you said, that's the minimum. That's not necessarily the optimum square footage. And that's something that this committee would be in charge of deciding what is best for ASDB to further the mission and make sure that we give the best to our students, while also being respectful of state taxpayers' funding. With that being said, the 30%, we may be in every classroom, but the classroom may only have 1 to 2 students in it, et cetera. It's also the designs of the classrooms, because they were built in the early 90s, don't necessarily meet our needs. So when we're looking at the overall footprint that we're on right now for education space, office space, or dormitory space, the numbers can look a little bit like, we're 10 or 12% full, when in all actuality, we are utilizing a good portion of that space. But could we, in the future, design it better? Could we use these terms and definitions and numbers to help us appeal to ADOA for additional funding in order to make sure that the footprint we utilize is actually more efficient and more effective for our current education needs, rather than what we were doing 20, 25 years ago. And that's everything from the furniture we have to the educational IT items that we have in the classroom, and also the dormitory and how the dormitory space is there as well. So, like you said, Mike, this is not necessarily the ideal footprint, but it is definitely a good benchmark. So there's 2 different benchmarks for space. There's the ARS code, which is for multiply handicapped, which I'm sure you know about, which is 80 square feet for elementary, 84 for middle school, and 125 for high school. But it's 100 square feet for the school facilities board. And that was for what they had asked us for guidelines many years ago. Once again, that's the minimum square feet, not the ideal. So the purpose of this committee is, at least like what Annette said, to get the start discussion going of how do we best utilize our space, what areas can we start to reevaluate where we're at and how we're using that space in order to make sure that we're not wasting Arizona state funds, but still provide the best education we can for our students, and that's the primary goal. So in the PowerPoint presentation that Terry, I, and Annette gave over to the rest of the committee, we'd be more than happy, as Annette said, to hand that over, which I think kind of does a better job of explaining it rather than just some of the raw data and looking at that and going, well, wait a minute, you know, Tucson campus is only 30% full in the middle school or elementary school or high school. I think it's a matter of looking at the full picture and not just that initial raw data. Does that help?
It does, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. Next is Annette Reichman, Superintendent, Agency Report.
Good afternoon, President Sims, members of the board, and Dr. Rex. I have two things that I want to point out this afternoon. The first thing, those of you who may not know, Bill Gibney, I'm glad he's on the phone right now. This is his last meeting with us as a board member. So I wanted to just take a moment to thank Bill for his service and his time and his commitment with the board. Some of you know Bill better than I do, know what he's done prior to me joining ASDB, but he's been truly committed. It's been a joy to work with you, Bill, and hopefully you'll be willing to say some final remarks before the end of the meeting today. All right, Bill?
I will be happy to, Annette. Thank you very much.
Okay, and then the second thing is my report. You might have noticed that I provided you with multiple pages of actions and probably a little bit puzzled as to why I would have done that. I just wanted to take a few minutes to share with you all of the work that we've been doing in the last year and a half that I can speak to so that you have a sense that the agency really is starting to move forward. The reason that we're all here, of course, obviously, is we want to be able to graduate students who are deaf, hard of hearing, deaf-blind, blind and visually impaired, to be college and career ready. That's the purpose. This is what we're all doing here. And as part of trying to achieve that vision, we have to look at our systems. What can we do to improve our system, to do what we do better? We have to commit to continuous improvement. And that, when we got involved with setting up the advanced ed accreditation, the whole notion behind that was how do we do the continuous improvement? We needed some help. And the advanced ed accreditation process is giving us a structure and framework to look at our systems and to figure out what we need to improve. The second piece that needs to happen is we have to earn all of our stakeholders' trust. That means you, the board, that means our staff, that means our students, that means the parents, that means the communities. We have to earn and get your trust. And with that trust, we can be able to work together collaborative, because obviously we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot that we need to improve on. So, as the superintendent, when I first arrived, I really started at just listening and learning. My first year, I spent a lot of time traveling the state, shadowing teachers, going into classroom, talking with people, doing sort of informal focus groups, and trying to understand what is ASDB and all of the complex different parts that we have here statewide. Since then, I've been shifting gears. I'm still listening, I'm still learning, I'm still seeking to understand, but I'm also acting. And everyone here in this room have been rolling up their sleeves and been working very hard. So this list, multiple pages, I tried to simplify it as much as possible. I tried to give you examples. It's not comprehensive, but these are sort of the highlights. So on the left page, on the left side here, you see the specific action that we have taken, that we are taking. And then on the right side, why are we doing those things? It gives you the reasons for taking those actions. So you can see on the first page, really focuses on the advanced ed accreditation activities. So, and one example of that is we're implementing a succession plan. Another example is we're starting to have a conversation about our curriculum. A third example is we formalize appraisals, evaluations of our teachers and our leadership and the executive team. And that's just the first page. You look at the second page, you can see that we're doing some agency reorganizing, trying to streamline different systems. One example is we have the director of that program taking on responsibility for all of the agency interpreters in Tucson and Phoenix to get them to work together and become more efficient about how we provide services. And we have right here an example of that. We have a Tucson interpreter and we have a Phoenix interpreter working together at a board meeting for the first time ever, I think. It's an example right here. Another example is we provide a lot of assistive technology to our students who are blind across the state, and how we purchase and provide and repair and replace the assistive technology is fragmented. So the director of blind programs has taken that on, and we're trying to figure out how we can streamline in a way that we continue to provide the high tech and the assistive technology that students need to be successful in the classroom, but to do it in a way that is efficient, that's effective, that we can account for every piece of equipment we have out there. We can't today. We're getting there. We're starting to have a good listing and inventory, but that inventory management piece, and then the funds that we use to purchase this assistive technology. That's the second page, and there's more there. On the second page, one example of the cross-agency collaborative. One group is the legislative group. Well, you just heard last week the governor, we weren't expecting it. We were very surprised. The governor decided to tell the world that he's going to support our budget request for $1.6 million for the Early Childhood Family Education Program. And the only reason that happened is because we had a legislative team working together that wrote the request to the governor's office, and then when the governor's office kept coming back, driving this team a little crazy for more and more and more and more data, that team scrambled around, pulling out papers, Obviously, we don't have good data collection here. That's a whole other issue. But pulling out papers and putting together that information and then providing it back to the governor's office. And now we have the governor supporting our request. Doesn't mean we will get the money. I'm not saying that. But for me, that just is huge that this 4 or 5 team members, they get together and they made that happen. And I can't say enough about this group. And if you want to know who they are, I'm happy to share with you. But that's one example of something that we're doing within the agency that hasn't been done before. And I haven't even gotten to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th pages. So I think I'm going to stop right now. But I want you to read this and really see what we are doing. I cannot give you results, not yet, but that doesn't mean we're not working very hard to get to some of those results. So basically, I'm asking that you give us another year, year and a half, and maybe by the end of the 3rd year, I can come back with some solid results from all of the work that we're doing to improve and continuously improve our systems in how we provide education and services to children who are deaf-blind, and blind across the state of Arizona. And that's my report.
Thank you, Annette. I very much appreciate your report and comments. I would make one input. So I think there are 2 things. I do think that we have to improve upon the services that we are currently offering, but we also simultaneously need to be looking at the breadth and depth of the services that we're offering. As of today, if a child is born with a profound sensory or hearing loss in Maricopa County, and the parents wish to choose listening and spoken language as the option of education, they do not, through the agency, have a full breadth and depth of support for that initiative. And so it's not just what we're doing, but it's what other things could we be doing. And I know that you and I have had that discussion, and I appreciate all your efforts in that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or okay, next to item 2.01, consent agenda items. Approval of the consent agenda items consistent with board policy to include items 4.01, 4.02, 5.01, 6.01, 7.2, and 7.05. Do we have a motion?
A motion that we accept the consent agenda items as presented.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Adopted. Next to 3.01, information and discussion item, questions for the board regarding the budget emails from Superintendent Reichman. Thank you very much for sending all of that information, Superintendent Reichman. It was things that the board was very much wanted to better understand the agency.
And you're quite welcome, and really just open up to you for any questions, discussion. I didn't really have a specific agenda. I made the effort to remind you of what had been sent out, so if you had read the list and said, I don't remember that, you knew which date I sent it to you, that you could go back and take a look at it. But really, this is open for you and your discussion and questions. Richard is here, I'm here, we're all here to respond to your questions.
Well, Superintendent Reichman, this is Mike again. I have insomnia, and so the 700 pages of information you sent gave me something to do at 2 in the morning, and I know more about the financial standing of ASDB than I ever thought I might. But I can't understate that the level of openness and transparency is stark. So I really appreciate the effort that you and your team made to opening the doors to gobs and gobs of raw data. And again, it gave me something to do in the wee hours of the morning. So thank you.
Sorry. Any other comments or questions? Okay. We are going to go down to 6.02 by Superintendent Reichman. Announcements.
Give me a minute here. Yes. This is for your information. We have 3 people in leadership positions who will be retiring as of June 2018. And I wanted to let you know who those individuals are. First is Jane McDonald. She is the Regional Director of the North Central Region. She'll be retiring in June 2018. Second is Mr. Richard Valdivia. He is the Chief Financial Person, and all of the data that you recently had looked at and I sent out an email really did come from him. Gave it to me, I tweaked it a little bit, sent it out to you. So, and then the third person that we didn't anticipate but was just informed is Ruth Parsons. And she is the Regional Director of the Eastern Highland region. Due to family reasons, she decided to also plan for retirement in June 2018. So that means we need to prepare a succession plan. And again, this is new to us. It's my understanding that in the past, we didn't really plan for replacing people. This time, we want to try to do it differently. So during the month of December, Dr. Rex will be taking some time to meet with staff at NCR and EHR to have a conversation about what kind of leadership qualities, leadership skills we need to be looking for. Then in January, February, we will be posting the positions. So we're moving very quickly. March, April, we're hoping to have individuals whom we've identified and offered the positions and hopefully have accepted. Maybe have them come on a little bit early so that we have some overlap during the transition period. But we're working on it very actively now, just to let you know.
Thank you very much. Next item is 7.01.
One moment, please, Mr. President. The interpreters are trying to find a microphone that works.
This is Shelley Herbold.
Oh, sorry.
I was truly hoping to be given more time for an overlap so that we can have some shadowing and mentoring. I feel like there is so much to acquire, especially in the positions for directors and Mr. Valdivia's. That's a lot to gain in such short time. So is there any way that we can definitely maybe give them an extension where we can start posting and having that mentoring before they actually leave?
We haven't decided how that's going to come together. I think part of the meetings with staff is to ask the question, what kind of skill sets do they need and what kind of transition needs to happen? So as we collect that information, then we'll start figuring out how much time that needs to happen in that overlap for the mentoring and the transition to happen. I agree with you. My experience in having Superintendent Lamer with us during my first 4 months here. That was the best thing you could have done for me in smoothing out that transition period. I can't say enough about how well that worked. So I would like to be able to give our leadership some of the same opportunities, that as we bring in new people, we allow for that overlap and the mentoring and the transition to occur. Yes.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much.
Superintendent Reichman, this is David Negro. Just for timing, we typically approve those contracts in the March meeting every year. Is it your expectation that we'll have candidates identified for these positions and that we'll be in a position to offer those contracts to those individuals in our March meeting of next year?
We have a goal set up to do that. After speaking with the staff first, we're going to then talk to all the special ed directors that serve in those areas and get that job posted and hopefully start a committee to do the interview process. That way we can have, some of these people are going to be coming from other jobs and they already are under contract commitment, so we'll have to work through that. But yes, to give as much early upfront time, absolutely. Now, with regard to contracts, were you thinking of trying to bring any contracts sooner with current people? Because I know our evaluations, we have set our timeline to be giving you a lot of information sooner than later.
Right. It depends on the board's schedule for 2018, and we can talk about that later. But we really aren't required to have contracts until mid-April. So recommended that we have a meeting mid-March to make those recommendations for renewal of contracts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments regarding the issue? Great. Next is 7.01, information item by Maria Murphy.
Good afternoon, Board President Sims, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, and Dr. Rex. You have before you the proposed changes for policies JF through KEB. Opportunity for public comment was provided on the website. No public comment was received, and all of the proposed changes were submitted to the policy subcommittee of the board several weeks ago. Questions were asked and answered, hopefully to the subcommittee's satisfaction. And at this point, I am open for questions.
Any questions for Maria Murphy? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is 7.03, Agency Ombudsman Privilege Update, and that has me as the commenter, so I'm going to pass this to Bill Gimpy.
All right. Since our last meeting, at the last meeting, Sue Kay mentioned that a woman by the name of Karen Grandin, I think is her last name, may be interested in either the ombudsman position or doing some sensitivity training. Unfortunately, I got Karen's information the day we left for Australia and New Zealand, and wasn't able to call her until yesterday, and she has not yet returned my call, so I have not had a chance to interview her. I know Sue Kay knows her quite well, and Sue Kay may want to address what Karen may be interested in. Sue Kay, David Nigro, and myself all interviewed Dick Baronzini, who is interested in being the ombudsman. I think David also interviewed Mr. Baronzini while I was gone, so I have not had an opportunity to speak to David or Mr. Baronzini about that interview. And then let me add this into the. Anita, I had several conversations with Samantha Rodriguez in your office. What a wonderful job she has done for me in tracking down the the fees that could be paid to somebody serving as an independent contractor ombudsman. It was difficult for her because in Arizona we don't have any independent contractors who go as ombudsman. We have lots of employees, full-time employees. She did some research in Utah and Texas and other places, but most of her information was for employees. What she did come up with was, in many cases, mediators, most times they're lawyers, serve, they take off their lawyer hat and they serve as mediators, and they of course serve as independent contractors. And in Arizona, there are hundreds of lawyers serving as mediators, and they charge anywhere from $150 an hour to $350 an hour. Many of you know that, as Annette said earlier, I'm going off the board primarily due to my wife's health. About a year ago, she was diagnosed with myasthenia gravis, and it's gotten very aggressive. And Cheryl and I were going to actually launch a new business, but it was going to be a very arduous task to launch this new business, and we're no longer going to do that. Cheryl gets fatigued very easily, and the good news is in January she'll be going through a very aggressive blood transfusion treatment series of 5 infusions of blood plasma, and we're hoping that will be helpful. The reason I'm stating this is I would like to throw Cheryl's name and my name in the hat to also be considered as ombudsman. We have served as mediators. We got degrees from Northwestern University in mediation, and we have served as a team, male and female, in the past when that's been requested. Cheryl has served as a female when that's been requested, and I've served as a male when that's been requested. So if we were to vote today, I would vote for Mr. Baronzini. But I think this is something that should be left to the new board, and I'd like to have the new board consider Mrs. Grandin and Mr. Baronzini, as well as Cheryl and myself.
Okay, well, I think, Bill, I'll take this moment to thank you for all your contributions. It's been a pure pleasure to serve with you and get to know you better. I think that it's very reasonable that the 2 board members who are left on the board and have done this work can gather around, and hopefully I will talk to them both about what we can do in the new calendar year in consideration of you and your wife as well.
Very good. And Mark, I don't know if it's appropriate at this time, but at some time I would like to give my regrets for leaving the board. And do you want me to do that later, or is it appropriate now?
No, now it's fine. It's a good.
I've been so honored to serve on this board. I love the direction it's going. I'm so glad we finally got Annette hired. And Annette, just kudos to you. You've been such a quick study. Your organizational skills are just wonderful. That plan you went over a few minutes ago was just awesome. And I think with your direction, that there's just a lot of positives going forward for ASDB. You and I have spent a lot of time talking about the VI culture as well as the AI culture. And I just like your global approach to everything that needs to be done and the direction to go. I really appreciate Nancy Alexander's help and her the strategic planning that she and all the board has done. And Mark, I particularly appreciated working with you. You were a terrific president, very knowledgeable and very professional, and I would just consider it a real honor working under you. And Shelley, I really enjoyed learning from you. I spoke with Sue Kay and and Lynn from time to time, but I also spoke to you a couple times on the phone, and just listening to you at the meeting show that I really got a more in-depth understanding of the needs of the deaf culture. I really appreciate it. So I don't know who they're replacing me with, but I know it'll be somebody better than I, and they can offer more time than I could. But it was a real pleasure and a real honor to serve on the board, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you so much, Bill. I can't tell you how much it's been great, and your wisdom and energy has been excellent. We really appreciate it. And your wife and her health will be in our prayers.
Well, thank you very much. We believe in prayer. Prayer is very powerful, and so you can pray for those blood plasma transfusions. That's what we're looking forward to.
Thank you. Okay. Next is 7.04, discussion and action item 2018 proposed ECFE legislation.
Yes, this is Annette Reichman speaking. This is to request you, the board, to formally vote on and approve us working with state legislators to propose a bill for an appropriations bill for $1.6 million, specifically for the Early Childhood and Family Education Program. We already have Representative Paul Boyer, who's agreed to be the prime sponsor. I met with Senator Sylvia Allen yesterday afternoon, and she also agreed to be the co-sponsor of this bill. So all that's left at this moment that I need is from you to vote and approve our submitting this bill.
I move that we approve the submission of this bill.
I second it.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It passed unanimously. Thank you. Next is discussion of possible action item approval of 2018 proposed change to ARS Title 15, Chapter 11.
Yes, this is Annette Reichman speaking again. This is what we call a technical corrections bill. The first one, the most simple, is we're taking out the term "and notarize" with the fingerprinting requirements we have here. The second, more complicated, is we're really adding a provision that any time the state legislature passes a bill to give teachers raises, that they automatically include ASDB. And the reason this came up is because in the last legislative session, they passed a bill giving all teachers a 1% increase, except ASDB and the Department of Corrections. So we didn't get that. This technical corrections bill would then fix that problem, that from here on out, state legislators decide to add funding for teachers, and they don't think to specifically say ASDB, we're covered. We're already added by statute. So we need your approval to propose that as well.
May I make a comment about that, Superintendent? Obviously, all teachers in Arizona are ridiculously underpaid, including the teachers at ASDB. One thing that we need to recognize then is that the accountability that PEAs face when it comes to AZ merit testing, should be put in place for ASDB as well. I know that there's been issues with getting that data, particularly from our co-ops. So, you know, I would support any measure to get any teacher in Arizona anything that we could possibly get them. But along with that, we need to push for better transparency for our Easy Merit scores and Azella scores that we need to come into compliance with from ASDB to accompany the ask for a raise. I think would be appropriate.
I'm in full agreement. This is Annette speaking. We're working with the Arizona Department of Education right now in an attempt to get the AZ merit scores for the co-ops so that we can start tracking year from year to year on how we're doing with our co-op students. We already have that information for the schools, and in fact, in the next board meeting, when I give a State of the Union address, I will also be giving you what we call an agency profile, and that will include specific data on our AZ merit scores for the 3 schools.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is
President Sims, can I have a motion to approve this?
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I'm sorry.
I thought we voted on it.
I move that we approve the motion for the technical fix.
Oh. And I second that.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes. Next is 7.07, approval of donation. Do we have a motion?
I so move that we approve the donations.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Discussion and possible action items. Set the calendar for 2018 regular board meeting. Does anybody have any comments about the date?
President Sims, I will not be able to join the July 12th meeting, and definitely not in person, perhaps not telephonically.
Yeah, I would make the comment that that particular time has been a very difficult time for the board to attend. And I'm not sure if it's get ready for the year, what it is, but we do not do very well in terms of our attendance. Superintendent Wright.
President Sims, this is Shelley.
Oh, sorry.
I'm looking here at Flagstaff. There aren't any meetings held in Flagstaff. Is there a reason for that? I know in years past, we have met in Flagstaff.
2017, there was no meeting in Flagstaff, so we just copied the 2017 calendar and recommending a 2018 calendar. But it's your schedule. You decide what you want to do.
Let's go to Flagstaff in the summer.
I agree.
We've been relatively unsuccessful in having it. In fact, I think we should move it to Phoenix or Tucson.
And that's why we moved it last year. Even though it was in July, only 2 or 3 people would attend in July. And
Yeah, it's true.
So Do we need to approve the calendar but for the January 18th?
This is Shelley. Can you give us a moment, Mark, so that we can look at our calendars to make sure?
Yes, I would comment that the March date conflicts with spring breaks for some of the people with kids like mine, but that doesn't mean I can't attend telephonic.
Hopefully, given the amount of media play that IDEA has had in the media, I'll still be around to attend these meetings.
President Sims, would you like to move that March meeting to the third week in March?
For me, that would be helpful, but it's not about me, it's about the whole board.
But it would be helpful to me as well.
This is Shelley. I don't have anything. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, 22nd would be fine. Like March 22nd?
Okay. And then I assume that the date, the staff believes that that's enough to cover the items that need to be covered in a timely manner.
Mark, can you repeat that, please?
I'm sorry, that the staff believes that those times are appropriate to cover things in a timely manner.
Could you clarify that question?
Sorry. Let me see if I can get my phone better.
This is Annette speaking. Maybe President Sims, you mean the leadership contracts? When you're right, we had scheduled it early March to allow for some flexibility. Postponing it to the third week gives us less flexibility. We still have, if we do the third week of March, we still have 3 weeks between then and April 15th. But the intent here was to provide some flexibility. So if you want to move that back to February, if that works better for you.
I'm okay with either. I guess the issue is you really might not have a lot of business to do between a January 18th meeting and an end of February.
Could we move it to March 1st, just 1 week before?
We could do that, sure.
Okay. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay. Can we make that change?
So does that need to be moved for approval? So I move that we approve the proposed meeting schedule for 2018 with the change from March 8th to March 1st for the Phoenix meeting.
And the Flagstaff meeting is moved to Phoenix.
There's
no Flagstaff meeting on the...
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Second, all in favor?
Shelley here, I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so, and would the staff please distribute an updated calendar for everybody to put in their calendars? Okay, next discussion and action item, 7.09, election of 2017 or 2018 officers pursuant to policy of last meeting of the calendar.
In 2018 it is, there's a typo.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. Well, I'm going to tell you, I asked anybody who wanted to be president to give me a call. I would like to tell you that my phone was ringing off profusely and vigorously, but that would not be the characterization. I do think that we need to get some people who are interested in doing it, but at this point, nobody has expressed any interest. If I'm appointed again, I would serve as president of the board for next year. If somebody else wishes to do so, I'm more than open to those discussions.
This is Shelley. I did want to ask Sue Kay if maybe you were interested in becoming board president for 2018.
While I would be interested and honored to serve, I have just accepted a new position at RSA starting the 20th of this month, and I'm not sure what those responsibilities are going to look like. It's in direct connection to what I do on the board, but I don't know what my time constraints are going to be.
Okay.
So are we open
Any other
to
discussion?
nominating folks at this point?
Well, I would say, is our secretary, so the secretary would be the other option. Yes, anybody want to make any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Dr. Sims to be the president for 2018.
How about for secretary? That sounded like maybe we had somebody who's still willing to serve.
I would actually like to ask if maybe Mike Gordon would be interested to serve as president.
Who's saying that, Sue?
Yes.
No, I respectfully have to decline. I feel my role as a CEO, in some ways, it never conflicts, but I always feel that there may be issues at hand that would prevent me from a role of that type of leadership at ASDB. I do appreciate it, though, okay. Any other comments?
This is Shelley. I move that we accept the nomination for Mark Sims as president and Lynn Davison as secretary.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
I won't even vote, Mark.
I voted. I'm just going to say I'm going to start the phone calling earlier. Okay, next is 8.01, call to the public for non-agenda items.
This is Suke. I have one to read.
Okay, great. Thank you, Suke.
Okay, that's all I have to do. Okay. I'd like to call Polly Garcia, and she'd like to speak on the subject of the museum's role and duty and contribution.
Great.
She broke her chair.
I apologize, the arm on my chair broke. So I believe Albert Duff, or maybe additional funds might be needed to repair the seat and the feedback. Good afternoon, Board President and board members. Superintendent Annette Reichman and Dr. Rex, ASDB faculty and staff. I am Polly Brady Garcia. I am the current ASDB Museum Curator. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Bill. Thank you so much for your service as our board member. And I ask and I pray for your wife's health.
Thank you so much, Holly.
I would like to talk about what I have been doing thus far as the museum curator. I have met with Superintendent Reichman regarding budget. In October, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of PDSD and ASDB's Tucson campus 105th year anniversary. We included early childhood and family, education, and we also recognized the co-ops. So this was a large ceremony celebrated here on the Tucson campus. Unfortunately, not very many attended, but we did earn $1,305 from this event. The funds will be directly allocated, $500 to the museum and $800 for the dorms. So we have chosen to allocate the funds there. In my meeting with Annette Reichman, we spoke about my role as the museum curator. The majority of my work was to write about the historical aspects of ASDB. I'm currently working on the Arizona Cactus News and the interesting history behind that program. In the following week, I will be attending the legislative session with the governor in Phoenix to discuss a museum or an exhibition placed in Phoenix at the legislative office to give a historical aspect on PDSD, ASDB, early childhood, and our cooperatives. So this is a display that we would like to have and hold in the governor's office. I currently see a need for the museum to expand. There are many things that the museum needs, for example, safety for both students on campus and for the public. Fire codes, we need to establish some sort of emergency alert system within the museum. I have noticed that when we have blind students visit and they are on their mobility practices around the museum, that there are some hazards. So there is a need for our space to be renovated and worked through. I also noticed that there are times where when I'm not here in the museum that the door is left wide open. So there is a concern of security regarding the museum. I also like to impress on the board that the staff and the numerous hours and time that they have spent for our celebrations have been amazing. Without the help of the staff and faculty at ASDB, our event would have not been a success, so I thank you. Other than that, I think I'm starting to work on, like I said, an archive master plan, as I've mentioned in previous board meetings. The museum is really becoming crowded at this point, so I'm collecting more and more things every day, so I definitely need a place for storage and to archive our materials. So that's a work in discussion, and hopefully the board is in support. I am working on all the pieces to the museum, and hopefully looking for a backup or a succession to my position, because I am almost 75 years old, so I'm getting there. It's almost about time to relinquish the control. So I would like to say good luck for our following board sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was good. Any other non-agenda public comments?
No. No, I'm sorry. I just have one.
Thank you very much. Next is call for items for discussion at the next meeting in January. Any items that any members would like discussed? President Sims, this is Gordon. Okay, thanks, Mike.
I'd like to consider the possibility of having another one of our post-meeting retreats, so to speak. an opportunity to discuss some of maybe the information that was presented today, particularly around the space staff-student ratios and maybe some of the other just kind of open discussion just for consideration. I've always found those to be particularly worthwhile, and I think there might be some information that we could kind of expand upon.
I agree. How about the early March meeting?
Yep, that would work.
Okay, so we'll talk to staff about that. Any other items? Okay. Before we do the motion to adjourn, I want to again thank Bill, and I want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. So the next would be a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I second.
I don't want to adjourn the meeting. But I do want to thank all of you so much. It was such a pleasure with working with all of you. If there's anything I can ever do for the board on in hoc basis, please let me know.
Thank you, Bill. We very much appreciate your contribution and your offering.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time and effort.